Welcome to Chapter 15 of The Divide. Please like and subscribe. The large metal doors for the east entrance into the forest creaked open. The morning sun barely pierced through the dense canopy as Julia and her classmates were driven by ATVs to a clearing in the forest. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that only precedes an adventure. All the teachers, usually seen in the calm of the classrooms, now wore tactical vests, their expressions serious as they directed the students off the ATVs and handed out paintball gear. "All right, you little bullseyes, now listen up," boomed Miss Myrtle. She stood on a makeshift platform with a map of the forest unrolled before her. "Today's exercise is not just about strategy and paint. It's about teamwork, leadership, and survival. You will need to rely on each other, and make no mistake, this isn't gym. Scout training counts for a large part of your grade." "How much?" Julia asked, a bit surprised. 50%, newbie," answered Bree from behind her. "Bigfoot Bree is right," spoke out Miss Myrtle. "You may know this better than the rest, Julia. Life is a battle. School should be preparation for that battle." With a whistle, Miss Myrtle then signaled the start of scout training. "You'll be divided into 5 groups," she continued, pointing to different sections on the map. "Each group has its territory to defend and objects to complete. Remember, this isn't just a game. It's training for something far greater." She then proceeded to call out names, and groups began to form. Julia found herself with a far too familiar crew. Julia was assigned with Yuki, Bree, Yolanda, and, of course, Clarice, all of whom were given a red color armband. Red, blue, green, yellow, and orange. Each color representing a team, each team a faction in this woodland skirmish. As the teams battled throughout the morning, the eventual winner would have the privilege to face off against one of the 12th grade teams in the afternoon. This was always a slaughter of sorts, but it was good training nevertheless. Each team had a captain, and Clarice was the captain of the red team. At first, Julia scoffed towards Yolanda at this. However, Yolanda told Julia with confidence, "No, don't worry. If there's one thing Clarice is good at, it's this. After all, her grade is mixed in with what happens to each and every one of us. And the principal's daughter won't mess that up." As the red team got sorted, Clarice spoke to make it clear where everyone stood. "Julia," she commanded, her voice sharp with authority, "my father put you on my team. So you're the tip of the spear. You'll lead the charge. Follow my instructions, and you won't get shot. Well, much, anyway." Julia felt a mix of defiance and determination. Being in the front line would make her vulnerable, yet it was where she could prove herself. So she nodded while gripping onto her paintball gun tighter. "Bree," Clarice continued, "you carry the shield. Keep Julia and me covered." Bree then hoisted the giant shield covered in paint splats and agreed. "Yuki," Clarice guided, "you know the drill. You're our ninja, so stay hidden, contact us by radio, and guide Yolanda's shots." Yuki gave a swift nod, then melted away in the surrounding trees. Yolanda, already perched high in a tree and scanning the terrain, gave a thumbs up. "Just tell me where to shoot," she called out confidently, her position elevated for the best vantage point of a sniper. Each team had 5 minutes to get set. It was obvious Clarice, Yuki, Bree, and Yolanda were matched up many times before. They all moved like clockwork to a position. Clarice whispered angrily to Julia, "When I say run, you run. When I say hide, you'll find cover. Trust me, and we'll come out of this on top." Julia nodded in agreement, then tucked behind a tree to inspect her paintball gun before the battle ensued. There was a eerie silence as the 5-minute mark came to an end. Then the horn for morning exercise projected out into the forest. The fight was on. The first encounter was less a battle than a sudden storm of paint and chaos. As the horn's blast faded, teams surged forward, the forest alive with shouts and the splatter of paint. Julia, at the lead of her team, felt her heart pounding in her ears. "Now!" Clarice hissed, and Julia darted forward, her prosthetic leg finding unexpected grace on the uneven ground. An opponent, a blur of yellow, emerged from behind a bush. Julia didn't hesitate, her paintball gun raised in a split second. But a shot from her left whizzed past, missing her by inches. "Roll, Julia!" Clarice's voice was urgent, and Julia complied, tucking and rolling just as another shot painted the air where she had just stood. Bree, with a giant shield, moved like a fortress, blocking a barrage of paintballs aimed at Julia and Clarice. The shield took the hits, splattering with colors as Bree advanced, pushing the enemy back. From her sniper's perch, Yolanda fired and took down a blue team member who tried to flank them. Yuki, their shadow warrior, whispered into her radio. 2 green team members, both moving in from behind. Clarice, with a swift gesture, signaled what Julia thought was a retreat. Unused to such tactics, Julia hesitated. Yet her confusion cleared as she watched Clarice and Bree move to create what was supposed to be a forward trap. Julia quickly ducked behind a fallen tree, her heart racing. The green team approached, unaware of the potential trap. But Julia's delay had thrown off the timing. From her position, she could see Clarice's frustrated look, realizing Julia hadn't caught on. The green team were almost upon them, and with Julia not in her place, they weren't in a position to attack. Clarice whispered fiercely into her comms, "Do something, Julia." Seeing the plan unravel, Julia acted on instinct. She acted in a way Steve trained her to. Julia popped up, her paintball gun firing rapidly. Her shots went wide initially, panic making her aim erratic. But then she found her rhythm, tagging one green team member in the chest. The green team, now aware of their vulnerability, scattered. But Yolanda, ever the sniper, took advantage of the chaos. Her shots rang out, precise and paintball deadly, hitting another green team member in the back. "On my mark," Clarice said to Julia in the comms, her eyes locked on one unsuspecting foe. Julia crept behind to where Clarice was. Her fingers tightened around her gun, her breath held. Clarice then pointed for Julia to take out the sniper of the orange team, in a tree just up ahead. "Let's see how good she can shoot," Clarice spoke into the comms for all to hear. Julia took a few seconds to line her shot. Then she pulled the trigger, tagging the sniper in his shoulder. "Not bad," Clarice shouted with what seemed almost like a compliment. However, she finished up with, "But you missed the head or chest. Sloppy shooting, Julia." The battle slowed down as many from different teams had been shot out of the match. It all seemed but over until one last green member, unseen by Julia, aimed from behind a tree. Just as the shot was about to hit, Clarice shoved Julia aside and fired back. In the end, Julia was safe, and the last of the green team was down. Clarice looked at Julia, who she had just saved, then back at the kid she had shot. A perfect headshot on the helmet. Julia couldn't help but nod out of respect. The winner of round 1 was Clarice's red team.